Hello there, my name is Ian, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I have something a little bit different planned for you, as over the weekend, I attended the 30th edition of ProgDay. ProgDay is the longest-running United States-based progressive rock music festival, and it's had a long and storied history, a few different organizers coming in and a few different systems going through. For a while it was run by a committee. In the early days, Peter Renfro created it, and I believe at one point it was run by Steve Sly. For the past couple of years, Michael Bennett has taken over running the festival. And his era sort of encapsulates my involvement. This was the 13th edition of the festival that I've attended. I started going in 2013, and within a few years, I started working it. I became the parking lot attendant, which means that I held a sign that said "Park Here," and it was a volunteer position. Oftentimes, I would drop the sign in the parking lot and go run and see the bands because I was so excited to see live music. I think somebody involved must have decided that I wasn't taking that very seriously and I needed more responsibility. So I ended up becoming the stage manager for the festival, which was a bit of a baptism by fire situation. The first couple of years I did it, I learned on the job and I made mistakes, but I kept going, and I gradually just got better at my job and better at understanding what's required of me. So just a brief explanation as to what I do down there. So I did mention that this is every Labor Day weekend in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It's one of the most unique festival-going experiences I think you could possibly have. Some people have referred to it as Woodstock without the mud. I never went to Woodstock, so I can't really comment on that myself. But what is a common thread is the social situation, and it's perhaps the most family feeling of the many festivals. And there seems to be a lot of opportunities for social gathering, for making lifelong friends, as I have through the years, but also making business connections and clients through my work there. So it's a really wonderful experience, and the music is a very specific branch of prog rock that I think veers toward the cutting edge. You're not necessarily going to hear something too retro sounding, and a lot of times what Michael's band selections do are actively pushing the definition of what modern progressive rock can be. So there have been bands that I've seen at ProgDay that went on to be popular. I would point to Thank You Scientist as a band that I saw one of my very first years, if not my first year down there, who are still being talked about today. So I told you I was going to talk about my stage management position and what my responsibilities are. So I'll briefly talk about that. But essentially, what I'm required to do is keep the festival on time. So I'm required to know when everybody's sets start, how long they're playing, when they get off the stage, how much time there is between bands for the next group to set up, as well as making sure that everyone involved, performer-wise, has what they need from us, as well as the backline and sound company, to make their performance as successful as possible. And that includes reaching out to the bands beforehand, usually via email, and collecting stage plots. And well, see, you can see the schedule in there, but I'm going to pull a really fun one here. So these stage plots consist of everyone's positioning on stage and relationship to each other, and where the instruments are meant to be placed. But there's also input lists, which tell the sound company where to plug what and how to mix. And getting this stuff ahead of time, getting the schedule together, all of that helps it run without a hitch. And There have been instances in the past, by the way, this is Corima, and we're going to talk about them a little bit later. I'm deliberately showing this because I had a good laugh with the band as to how unique the stage drawing is, but we really enjoyed that. But more on that later. The good news is this year the bands were super professional. They were experienced, and they knew how to get on and get off, and they knew how to entertain the crowd. And that was very much fun to watch. It made my job extremely easy and enjoyable. On top of that, the weather was absolutely perfect. I don't think we broke 84 degrees. Now, last year, it was about 100 degrees and highly humid. So, like, the equipment was suffering, the people were suffering. It was a little bit of a slog last year, as fun as it was. But this year, everything was just so beautiful. I got to catch up with old friends, with clients, and I got to make some new friends, which I'm, very grateful for the opportunity to meet so many interesting and unique and talented people. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go. Also, I picked up a number of really cool additions to my physical media collection, both in terms of CDs, surround mixes, as well as music DVDs and performances. So at the end of the video, hang around and I will show you what I scored at the merch desk, which isn't a whole lot, but I did get some pretty cool stuff that will have a bearing on the future of this channel. So without much further ado, as they say, let's talk about the bands. So we had 8 bands over the course of 2 days. And here's the program, which everyone got. They do this every year. You can see my name as the stage manager, as well as the stage crew, Sean Geist, Todd Werner, sound engineering, Fat Productions, and Mike Potter. I don't see his name on here, but Dan Fowler was kind of the boss of the sound and backline crew. And the man's a magician. You can watch my video last year where I talk about how he was able to convert European plugs, like when you plug into an outlet, into an American outlet. That just was astounding to me how he was able to do that on the fly. Yeah, so let's talk about the bands a little bit. So first up at 10:15 Saturday morning, we had Nospun, but you might notice that it's spelled Nospun, which was a little confusing for me at first because I was calling them Nospun, but it's Nospun. So one of the things that I think Michael does a really good job with is the pacing of the acts. And he almost always starts the festival off with a high energy band because we're talking about being up at 10:15 in the morning. And, most people have traveled. Personally, I drove 7 hours from Ohio to North Carolina, so I was beat first thing Saturday morning, and I had a hard time getting up. But Michael's pacing works really well because he always puts a high energy or progressive metal band first, and Nospun were no exception. While the whole progressive metal thing really isn't to my particular taste, I could definitely tell that these guys could play. And I really enjoyed them, for what they were.
I'm laying the smoke gas, no target, shooting my leg.
So at 12:30, this would have been around lunchtime, of course, we had the return of Janel Leppin and her Ensemble Volcanic Ash. Last year, Janel played with her husband, Anthony Purog. This year, Purog was back, but they had a full lineup, several pieces, I want to say like 5-piece lineup. And I actually enjoyed them quite a bit more this year. I liked them last year, but this year they were smoking. And you couldn't tell this from their set, but evidently they had a late night gig the night before and didn't get into the hotel until about 4 a.m, and then they had to perform at 12:30. So they were running on fumes and probably a little bit of caffeine, but nobody could tell. I thought this was an incendiary performance. I love the way that cello seems to be becoming like the new guitar. And I've noticed this with a couple of acts. There's a group I've seen on YouTube called Lung who also use the cello in a similar way, where it's like you might drone the bass strings or the lower strings on the instrument and use the higher string for leads. So she was like having a rhythm guitarist and bassist together. And then you pair that with Purog's guitar playing, and let me tell you something. I've seen a number of astonishing guitar players. This is some of the most incredible guitar playing I've ever personally witnessed. And I was filming their sets, little bits and pieces. I tried to like enjoy it not through my phone, but I was sure to grab like 5 to 6 minutes of every band so that I could show it here on my YouTube channel. But I was filming the Ensemble Volcanic Ashes. I think this is probably their opening song, or maybe it was second or third. And I was just doing the slow pinch zoom on Purog's guitar solo, and I just could not believe what I was seeing and hearing. So I'm going to roll that right now and see what you think. So after Janel Leppin's Ensemble Volcanic Ash. We had Mono Means One at 3 p.m. And these guys are a trio, and they made a big sound for a small ensemble. So the band is led by John Ferrara, who was in a ProgDay band a few years ago called Consider the Source. And this man is an incredible bass player. Again, like picking my jaw up off the ground watching him play. But not only was he technically proficient, but there was passion behind his playing. And that's something that I definitely resonate with. And we're going to come back to that on Sunday, talking about passionate performances. But this music was so unique. And I can't specifically point to another progressive rock band as like a reference point, but melodically, we have this keyboard player, and this guy had like 4 or 5 keyboards set up that he was working with, different Moogs, and there was like a Hammond organ or something there. And his sounds ranged from sort of like Camel-esque or Peter Barden's style leads. Like his melodies were making me think of Peter Barden's. But instrumentally, it was definitely more jazz fusion based. And with the drumming, which was, equally as impressive, busy, but very impressive. It sometimes, as one of my friends pointed out, it sometimes drifted into the Jaga Jazzist territory, if you've ever heard of them. And it was kind of this mixture of EDM, like electronic dance music, with jazz fusion and progressive rock. And it had a very fresh sound to it to me. And as another friend of mine, Ian, no relation, another friend of mine, Ian, pointed out, they're the perfect ProgDay band because the music was not particularly, it wasn't particularly challenging to listen to. It was very pleasant and enjoyable, but it was complex and it was impressive. So this equal approach of accessibility with complexity in the playing made it something that was very enjoyable to listen to, but also impressive at the same time. So I was really glad to see them, and they were one of my favorite bands of the weekend, just in terms of pure enjoyment. So I'm gonna roll a clip now for you to check them out and see what you think. So at 5:30 p.m., the last band slot of the day, we had the Ear Brigade. And prior to the festival, I asked Michael, the festival producer, as his credit is here, I asked Michael who he thought would be my favorite band of the weekend, who was going to be the biggest surprise. And he suggested Ear Brigade, and I have to say he was correct because I absolutely loved this band. And they are from California. I think they're from Oakland, and they're like Canterbury music. Like I could hear like a little bit of gong in their sound and a little bit of magma. But it was still very unique. It had kind of like a pop kind of thing going on, like with the songwriting. And the woman who was fronting the band had mentioned to me when she was going up that Motar are friends of theirs. And that's sort of who they remind me of. If you've ever listened to Motar, and I'm struggling to remember the lead singer's name, but Mariah Dickinson, I think that's her name. I'm going to have to check that. If not, this gets cut. But she kind of reminded me of her, that sort of sophisticated jazz pop mixed with prog, and it was very enjoyable. It was high energy. I enjoyed watching the front woman walk up to her bandmates right before the show started, and she got like kind of really close to them and said, "Let's have fun." And that spirit carried through the next 90 minutes, and I absolutely enjoyed every second of this. I went back and bought 2 of their CDs, and we also were able to record their set through the monitors, so I have to remember to get that recording to them by the end of the day. But that was a really impressive set. So check it out. Let's see what you think. So that wrapped up Saturday, and already the band quality was so strong and consistent that I decided that this was the best ProgDay lineup in some time, if not ever. Like, I don't think I've ever been to a ProgDay where I enjoyed every single band. And on Saturday, I did. To some degree, I enjoyed every single band. And if I were to rank them, like, it was so close. It maybe time of day, my mood, whatever. But I enjoyed every one of them, and it was paced so well that it worked really well for me. Now, Saturday night, went out for Indian cuisine at Tandoori Bites. I recommend that restaurant if you're ever in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because it's very authentic feeling, and the wait staff are lovely folks, very accommodating, and it's a great place to get some just killer food. I don't often have the opportunity to enjoy this kind of cuisine. So this is one of the things that I really enjoy about going down there is I get to try Indian food. I get to try Korean food. And a lot of times it is authentic. So Sunday, at 10:15, we have the 20 committee. And, to be honest with you, I hadn't really remembered much about their set, but I went back and watched the video that I recorded, and they were very, very good. And it jogged my memory that they were the funkiest band of the weekend. Like, they had a little bit of a Gentle Giant, like Carrie Minier clavinet thing going on, and very, very prog. And I would say that the 20 committee, as well as the final band of the weekend, Edensong, were the most traditionally sounding progressive rock bands. And in a festival called ProgDay, it's great that we had those. We had those bands that did sound very vintage, maybe, and very much in keeping with the genre and tradition of progressive rock. And these two very much reminded me of some of those great, English and United States-based bands that I grew up on. But great bunch of guys, great players, and I ended up with 2 of their CDs. I'll talk about that when I get to my haul. But here, check it out. Here's the 20 committee. So at 12:45 p.m., a little bit later in the day than the second slot on Saturday, at 12:45 p.m., we got Woodenhead. And Woodenhead hail from New Orleans. And my comment on hearing them for the first time live in front of me was, number one, they sound like they're from New Orleans, which is cool. And number two, they sound like they belong at ProgDay. And what's interesting about these guys, and I was talking with some of my friends about who are familiar with the history of this band, and it's my understanding that they first started in the mid-'70s, and their first record was like 1979 or so. Listening to them, I found them so enjoyable, and I thought that they brought a unique and distinct flavor to the festival that I really have not heard this sort of thing before. And also the fact that they have this history, this 40 or 50 years of playing together. And I do think that we saw mostly original members. I know that Fran, the keyboardist, was definitely an original member. But they did a terrific job. And I found them to be one of those hidden gem type bands that often show up at ProgDay that have a history, have a cult following, but perhaps aren't known by so-called mainstream, if there is such a thing, progressive rock fans. So I was just so grateful to get to see this band. I was grateful to spend some time chatting with them because they were really interesting folks and kind of had a unique offbeat sense of humor. It added a sense of authenticity and history to an already authentic and historic festival that bands like Bird Songs of the Mesozoic last year would provide. Like that was honestly, even though musically they're quite different, it's sort of in a similar category of like hidden gem cult bands who are due to be, I think, appraised and accepted by a wider audience. The one drawback to their set has nothing to do musically, but on Saturday, and this is just part of the game with going to ProgDay. You know me, I'm a music producer. I work out of my house, and I spend most of my time out of the sun in a basement. And I am somebody who's prone to burning, sunburns, and I did apply sunscreen, but I got burned in just sort of the weirdest places. Like my nose got it the most, as you can see. And there was a spot like right on my hairline that got burned like crazy. So Sunday morning, I was taking the spray sunscreen. I was rubbing it all over my forehead, all over my nose, around my eyes and my ears. And around the time of Woodenhead's set, I went and got lunch from the food vendor. And I got this jerk chicken or something like that, and it was way hotter than I expected it to be, and it kind of lit me on fire when I ate it. And then on top of that, there were bones in it. I was having to pick bones out of my mouth and deal with that. And there was some kind of coating on my fingers, and I think perhaps through maybe the heat and the sun, some of my sunscreen melted into my eyes, and I may have been trying to rub my eyes, and I think maybe I got some of that chili powder in my face. And so the next band, I'm meeting with the next band, Corima, who I have a history with. I saw them at their first ProgDay appearance back in 2013, which was my first ProgDay. They were the young band there, and they just absolutely blew everybody away with their energy. So I'm standing there talking to the violinist, Andrea. She's a lovely person and somebody I consider a friend now, which is great. Again, this is like part of the joy of ProgDay is meeting these unique and wonderful people that I would absolutely never have had the opportunity to meet. So I'm standing there talking to Andrea, and my left eye is closing on me, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And I'm starting to get this just dull, terrible pain. And so about halfway through Woodenhead's set, I could no longer see. And I was starting to panic. And I could barely even see to look at my phone to be like, okay, Google, how do I deal with getting something in my eye like sunscreen or, this spicy paste or seasoning or whatever it is that I got, while just being barely able to even see. And so I ended up getting water and flushing out my eyes, and I was able to get my right eye. Open to be able to see. So I was kind of walking around with one eye shut, even though I had glasses on. Nobody could tell. And I was just in the worst pain for the remainder of Woodenhead's set, and quite honestly, the rest of the day. So this little misfortune sort of screwed up half of my day on Sunday, I hate to admit. And it's something that I need to make sure doesn't happen in the future. So with that caveat going forward, you have to remember that for the rest of Sunday, I was dealing with maybe some of the worst discomfort I've ever dealt with in my life. Corima goes on, and I absolutely love them. They are based in Mexico as well as Los Angeles. And when they played the last time, Patrick, their saxophone player, was with them. And I connected with him on Facebook, and I've been basically keeping up with him ever since. This time he couldn't make it. So they were down a member, and Andrea had to kind of take over as the lead instrument, and she became the focal point, which worked really well for me because she is a phenomenal violinist. And what impressed me about these guys the most is, number one, I could tell that they'd heard Magma. Magma's all over their music and the Zeul genre, which I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you know what I'm talking about. This very ritualistic thing with the invented language, repetition, and intensity, moments of calm, but building up. And you know how Magma are. If you don't, go listen to the Kontarkosk record. That should tell you all you need to know about that particular classic band. But so Corima are singing in this invented language, and the last time they were at ProgDay, they were very intense and energetic, and everybody was just kind of in shock by the time they ended. This time the vibe was a little bit different, and I would argue it was better because the intensity was there when the music required it, but a lot of times they built on things a little bit more. They vibed. And what kind of flowed through their performance and really made an impression and honestly was very moving about their set was how passionate their playing was. Much like Mono Means One, there was just passion pouring through every note that was played, every vocal that was sung. And despite the fact that we're singing in an invented language and it's just gibberish, basically, you could tell the emotions. And I would definitely point to punk as being an influence. Like there was a bit of like an angry punk thing going through their set. It really affected me. It just deeply affected me. And I remember sitting there and resting my eyes. I had my eyes closed through most of their set, just trying to heal and just being totally like plugged in with my ears as to what was going on. And it just, despite my discomfort, despite the pain, they were my favorite act of the weekend. And, afterwards I got to spend some time with them, particularly Andrea, but also their keyboard player, Paco. I got to hang out with him a little bit, and we talked some Frank Zappa. It turns out we have some music in common, so that was really, really nice. It was really nice to share that. Just warm, fuzzy, good feelings all around. So go ahead and check out Corima if you ever get the chance. They have a new record coming out soon. I absolutely can't wait to hear it. For those of you who have written me and said, why don't you talk about more modern progressive rock? Maybe this is an opportunity to do so. If this video shows some interest, people show some interest in this video, maybe this is an opportunity to talk about it. Because I was thinking, hey, I might like to have these folks on sometime to just have a discussion. So, let me know in the comments if that would be of interest to you. But in the meantime, here's Corima. So the day wrapped up early, and at 5:15 p.m., we had Edensong. And I can't remember where they're from originally. It might have been California as well, but this is the third time they've played at ProgDay, and I'm fairly certain I've seen them one other time. The interesting thing is when they were about to go on stage, their singer/guitar player was familiar with me, and he mentioned that A Passion Play by Jethro Tull was his favorite album. And there's also a hype quote from Ian Anderson about this band, because they are flute-led and kind of have that folksy Tull flute hard rock prog thing going on. And again, much like the 20 Committee, they were perhaps the most traditionally prog rock sounding act of the weekend, and I found them very enjoyable. However, I was at a disadvantage for enjoying their set. It has nothing to do with their talent or what they can do, what they're capable of. So don't take it as a slight against them. But I was in so much pain from my eye at this point, and I was in misery. And to be honest with you, I was just clamoring for a shower at this point, and to just clear up my issue and get some relief. So apparently I've seen them twice now, and I hope to get to see them again sometime under proper circumstances and give them a shot. Because in listening to the recordings that I got, which you're about to see, they are very, very good, and were a absolutely worthy closer for a wonderful weekend. So yeah, check it out. So another wonderful ProgDay weekend. Maybe my personal favorite of all the ones I've been to, because I enjoyed all of the bands to some degree or another. There have been years where honestly I enjoyed one band, or there have been years where I enjoyed one day and then the other day not so much. This one, the quality was consistent throughout. I had my favorites, the ones that reached me more than the others, but that has to do with circumstances that are beyond my control, such as the time of day, how I was feeling, was I in pain, also an overall feeling of exhaustion. Now, the level of exhaustion wasn't nearly as bad as it's been in previous years because the weather was so good and cooperative. And, everybody was just so kind and sweet. It was so wholesome. Like it was just something so wholesome about this experience. I hope that if you're watching this and you're thinking, I got to get to ProgDay someday, I hope you decide to come down because it's so special. There's nothing else like this. Really, it's life affirming to have these kinds of experiences. And I highly recommend it to those of you who are even the slightest bit interested. I think you should do it. So, I did promise to show my haul, and I know this video is running a little bit long, but hopefully you'll stick with me. So a couple of things happened. I didn't want to go nuts at the merch desk, and part of that has to do with the fact that I was there for work. I did get paid to do my job here, and so I didn't want to spend all my money, basically, although I'm definitely happy to give back. And as I told the festival organizers before I left, I was talking with Michael Bennett and Debbie Bird, who are great friends of mine. And I said, I'm spending half of to 75% or more of my pay at the merch desk, and I'm happy to do it because it keeps the thing going. But I didn't want to go crazy because there's a lot of stuff coming out. I have a lot of things already. So I'm not really like hurting for music. I've got a lot to listen to. But that being said, I had an absolutely awesome set of scores from the merch desk, and I'm going to talk about them just briefly. So I really enjoyed the Ensemble Volcanic Ash set, even more so than the Janel and Anthony set from the previous year. This was just total fire for me. And I really liked working with them. I was impressed by their playing. I thought they were great people. And I decided that I wanted to support them and I wanted to hear this music again. So I picked this up. They have several releases. They're on the Cuneiform record label, who I have a relationship with, and I've done a number of releases and have some releases coming out soon through Cuneiform. So anytime there's a great Cuneiform band, I like to support them. And this was no exception. And if the performance is any indication, I'm going to love this disc. So I would certainly recommend it. This is To March is to Love from Janel, Leppin, and the Ensemble Volcanic Ash. Also, I got 2 albums from the Ear Brigade. And the reason why I bought these is I was talking with the front woman, and I'm so sorry. I'm horrible with names. People tell me their name and I forget it 10 seconds later. But I remember music details and trivia and stuff that doesn't matter. But faces I'm great with, but names are just, forget it. But she was telling me that most of the set list came from this album, but they did also about half of this one, and it's their most recent. So I picked up both. I was also thinking about how they came down from California and, could use some cash to help their travel concerns. So this is a really interesting band, and I'm happy to have some exciting and unique modern progressive music in my collection, because most of what I talk about here is the classics. Unfortunately, that's what gets the clicks. But I am interested in the modern scenes, and I liked what they did, so I got them. Okay, just a few more purchases, and then I'm going to talk about gifts. I was missing this from my Steven Wilson and Porcupine Tree DVD collection. I have all the other live releases, but I didn't have this anymore. Ironically, it was my first Steven Wilson live DVD. So I've come full circle after selling my collection back. I bought the first one that I bought. I rebought it last. But try to find a sealed copy of this anywhere, and you're not going to pay $20 for it, I promise. It's out of print, and I bought this from a friend who I talk to down there every year. And this year, again, I shared a really nice chat with him. So happy to support Glenn. And I'm glad to have a complete Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson DVD collection, because I am thinking about doing a video about them, because somebody wrote me and asked me to talk about Porcupine Tree more. So I'm thinking about doing a video about this, and this is essential to complete my collection. So I'm going to talk about gifts, and I'm saving my greatest score for last. So hang around till the end. I have something very special to show you. So, I did get this sticker from, this was the Ear Brigade. Great band name, by the way. My friend Ian won the ProgDay raffle prize, one of the ProgDay raffle prizes, which was a CD from each one of the bands, and I think there was a mess of T-shirts. And Ian runs a great radio show on progrock.com called the Avant Jazzcore Happy Hour with Ian Cars. And so Ian's got a lot of this music. Bands give him stuff. He buys stuff off Bandcamp all the time. He's a total music connoisseur, much like I am. So Ian gets this stack of CDs, and he says, I have half of them. And he offered them to me. So I said, yes, I accepted. And so I ended up with 2 albums from the 20 Committee, which is great. Because listening back to them, I didn't remember their set very much, but listening back to them, they were very enjoyable. So I'm happy to go back and revisit this. That's the 20 Committee, A Lifeblood Psalm, and the Cycle Undone. And very happy to get this. This is the Corima record that they were supporting when I saw them in 2013. And I'm so glad to have this. I had to make a choice because of, limited funds that I brought with me. So I decided to buy a t-shirt from Corima. As you can see here, happy to support them because I was thinking they got to travel from all over. And, between a CD and a t-shirt, t-shirts were a little bit more money. So I decided to go for the t-shirt to help them out. But, and they were just lovely folks and my new friends. They're my new buddies. But I'm happy to have a copy of their 2012 album. This is the one they supported when I saw them last time. And they told me that their new record is pretty much mastered and ready to go. So I'm looking forward to that in the new year. But in the meantime, I'm going to be checking this out again. I also got this disc from Mono Means One, which I was glad to get because I was thinking that after the festival, I was going to go download some things. I was going to go buy things on Bandcamp digitally. So I'm glad to have them in my physical media collection instead. Because, my thing with downloads is when I download something, I forget I have it. But when I have a physical item and it takes up space in my life, I have a better chance of remembering to listen to it. So I got this. And then I also got this live performance from Woodenhead. And again, I really enjoyed these guys. And I would love to see them get, discovered outside of the New Orleans scene and have more people check them out because I thought they were really special. And again, the history is an important thing for me, but I'm not sure when this performance is from. It's called Live at Chikiwawa. And it looks cool. It's a great cover. So those were the gifts. I forgot about this one. This is the latest film in the Romantic Warriors documentary series. My friends Adele Schmidt and Jose Zagara Holder directed these. And this has got to be the 6th or 7th film they've done because the first one was like the modern progressive scene, a lot of American music, and they actually did cover ProgDay. The second one was about the rock and opposition scene and the history. The third one was about the Canterbury scene and featured the final interviews of David Allen from Gong. Then they decided to do the krautrock scene, the German Kosmisch, that whole movement. And the topic was so large and expansive that they had to split it up into 3 films. This is the 3rd and final installment. I have the other 2, and I may have worked on one of them. But this has groups like Tangerine Dream, Agitation Free, Embryo, The Cosmic Jokers, Nectar, Harmonia, Cluster, and many that I've never heard of. So this is going to be a discovery thing. If you know me, I'm a huge Tangerine Dream fan. So this is going to be up my alley. It's based on the Berlin School specifically. They broke up the 3 films regionally, and tried to cover as much as they possibly could. So I've seen the other films, haven't seen this one yet, but I'm looking forward to it. This is Krautrock 3, Romantic Warriors 4, a progressive music saga. Also was gifted a couple of films from my friend Peter. Peter was actually the founder of the festival. But I want to show you something really special before we go. I saved perhaps the best for last for some of you. I think some of you are going to be rather excited about this. Trying to reorganize. Hang on, folks. We'll fix this in post, won't we? All right. So, my friend Peter had a copy of this, and I saw it, and it was a little expensive for what I was hoping to spend this weekend. In fact, it cost about half my paycheck. But I know that I'm covering Genesis material, and people ask me all the time, what do I make of the Nick Davis mixes? And I've never heard particularly great things about them, but I had heard that the 5.1 mixes were better. So I always wanted to own the 5.1 mixes of the Peter Gabriel era, particularly given the fact that The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is coming out in Atmos this year, and that big box set, and people are going to ask me, how does this compare to the old 5.1 edition? I promise you that I'm going to be asked that question. And the worst thing for me to say about something like this, a release, is I don't know. I hate having to say I don't know. And I've constantly had to say that, I don't know. So I made Peter an offer on this, and I explained to him that it was, I'm not trying to resell it or anything, that this is for my reference library. And I specifically told him that it was for my YouTube channel. And Peter, like many people I met this weekend, says that he watches me. So hello, Peter. Thanks for watching. But he was kind enough to sell this to me, and he didn't price gouge me. And thank you so much, man. I appreciate it a great deal. But these are in absolutely perfect condition. I checked all the discs out and stuff, and I listened to a little bit of Trespass last night. So I'll be talking about these more in the context of when I do more Genesis reviews and SACD reviews. These are the American versions. They are the ones with the CD and the DVDs. They're not the dual layer SACDs. But just to have them as a reference, I'm so grateful. Even if maybe the mixing isn't always for me, I'm happy to have this. And it's a really attractive box set too. And I hope to get the second one at some point, because actually the Duke album, and then there were 3, and Wind and Wuthering are among my favorite Genesis records. But yeah, some of you are going to be really excited about this, and I'm looking forward to talking more about it in the future. One other thing, my friend and client has loaned me his reel-to-reel machine. So I have a 10-inch reel-to-reel machine. And I'm going to be doing a video about that very soon. And also, I have an announcement to make, and that's that I'm going to be doing a radio show, a podcast again very soon. So there's going to be more details about that in the coming weeks. So hang around. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging around. This is going to be a bit of a long video. It's not going to do well in the algorithm, but it's something that means a lot to me. I'm very passionate about it. And I had a wonderful time, and I just wanted to share it with you. And I wanted to share some of these clips that I took. So don't forget that if you enjoyed this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I talk about progressive rock music all the time. Generally, it's older stuff just because that's what people are interested in. It gets the clicks. But I'm feeling like covering more modern bands in the very near future. Don't forget to leave me a comment if you attended the festival and if you enjoyed it, or if you had criticisms, concerns about the festival. We could start a dialogue below. Until then, I'll see you later. It's been real fun. Bye-bye, folks. Have fun. See ya.